The following is a presentation of Canyon School District's overview of critical policies for school and district administrators.
The Board of Education and the District Administration would like to thank you for the service you provide to the students and patrons of Canyon School District. Employees are annually required to complete the Critical Policies Read and Sign form, submitting it to Human Resources upon completion. The initials and signature indicate that the employee will understand and observe district policies and recognize their responsibility to do so, as well as has had the opportunity to ask questions relating to the information provided and are notified that all policies are available at policy.canyonsdistrict.org.
As employees of the district, it is important that we know and support the 5 tenets of the Board of Education. They are student achievement, innovative practices, community engagement, customer service, and fiscal accountability. It is also important to understand the Board's mission that all children will graduate from Canyon School District college and career ready. Though what we do on a daily basis may be very different from each other, each of our missions is the same. This presentation outlines the expectations of your employment and will help you be successful. In support of our mission, there are 4 overarching expectations, directives, that we all must follow. They are: all employees are role models, and as such, conduct must be professional and befitting a Canyons District employee. All employees must follow the directives of their supervisors, must keep all protected information confidential, and must adhere to and follow district policies. Failure to follow these directives will lead to disciplinary action, up to and including termination of employment.
District policy, employee conduct, and professionalism directs that all interactions and relationships between employees and students are to be professional and appropriate. Employees are required to maintain boundaries that are consistent with the legal and ethical duty of care that school personnel have for students. It is imperative that all employees recognize and avoid behaviors that may lead to inappropriate conduct, such as a boundary violation. A boundary violation means crossing verbal, physical, emotional, and social lines that a school employee must maintain in order to ensure structure, security, and predictability in an education environment. Inappropriate conduct is any behavior by an employee toward a student that would reasonably give the appearance of impropriety, regardless of whether such behavior is complained of by the student, regardless of whether the behavior is overtly sexual, and or regardless of whether such behavior would constitute a crime. Examples of adult-to-student behavior that may, upon examination of a totality of the circumstances, constitute inappropriate conduct and or grooming and lead to employee discipline up to and including termination for cause include, but are not limited to, the following example scenarios from the policy exhibit.
Look, Mr. Doe texted me and wants me to meet him. What should I do?
Personal communication with a student for reasons unrelated to instruction or official school business.
Employees should not use their personal social media accounts to friend, follow, invite, add, swipe, match, or anything similar with students of Canyon School District.
Conversations or discussions with students that are sexually suggestive, sexually degrading, that imply sexual motives or intentions, or that pry into a student's personal business, including sexual remarks or innuendos about a student's body or appearance, discussions about sexual experiences or exploits, spreading sexual rumors, telling sexual jokes, questioning a student about his or her boyfriend, girlfriend, sexual experiences, and attitudes.
Obstructing access or the view into classrooms, closets, or storage areas by locking doors when alone with a student or covering windows with paper or other opaque material.
Requesting or encouraging students to model, taking or distributing photographs of individual students, or promoting students on web pages or through other means, particularly where such activities contain sexual innuendo or content, and are undertaken without the parent's knowledge or consent.
Participating in or condoning inappropriate physical pranks, including but not limited to teasing or hazing such as mooning, snuggies, wedgies, bra snapping, skirt flip-ups, pinching, etc.
Employees are required to promptly notify their supervisor, principal, or other administrator if they suspect or become aware of a situation that may constitute a violation of this policy. For your information, a violation of this policy may also constitute child abuse, which must be reported to the Division of Child and Family Services or local law enforcement.
Stop the presentation and discuss your duty to report any suspicion of grooming by another employee, such as holding a student on their lap, cuddling, flirting, texting individual students, discussing their personal relationships, meeting with a student off campus, transporting students, or being alone with a student in a closed room. If you get a squishy feeling, then something may not be right. Report your concern to your administration immediately.
Employee Instruction, Counseling, and Administrative Tasks section regulates, if it becomes necessary to meet with students outside the regular school day or at an out-of-school location, employees must have prior written approval from their principal or supervisor and be job-related. Student transportation in private vehicles regulates that an employee shall avoid traveling alone with students. If a student must be transported by an employee due to an emergency situation, the principal shall be notified as soon as possible.
Regulation 5 outlines that all extracurricular activities outside regular school hours or off school property must be authorized in advance and in writing by the principal. Employees are not authorized to allow students in their homes for school-related social activities without prior written permission from the principal. Regulation 6, Employee Involvement in Private but Public Education-Related Activities, indicates that an employee may participate in a private but public education-related activity if the activity is separate and distinguishable from employment in the district and does not interfere with the performance of the employee's job. Employees shall not charge for tutoring services delivered at the school, either within or outside school hours. Public education-related activities include, but are not limited to, tutoring, lessons, clinics, camps, or travel opportunities. When promoting a private activity, an employee may offer public education-related services, programs, or activities to students, provided they are not advertised or promoted during school time and consistent with the policy. They may discuss the private activity with students or parents only outside of the classroom and the regular school day. The employee may use directories that are available to the general public to identify prospective clients, such as high school phone directories, distributed or made available to the public. They may also use student or school publications in which commercial advertising is allowed to advertise and promote the private activity. Employees may not contact any students at public schools except as stated in this policy. They may not use education records or information obtained through employment with the district unless the records or information have been made available to the general public. They may not use school time and/or materials to promote, discuss, or prepare for the private activity. They may not state or imply to any person or entity that participation in a private activity is required for any school program, and they may not give or withhold credit based on participation in the private activity, including but not limited to clinics, camps, private programs, or travel activities that are not equally and freely available to all students.
Fees are established to ensure a climate of equal access and equal opportunity for students. Neither schools nor teachers can require students to pay fees that are outside those that have been previously approved by the Board of Education. Students who have been granted fee waivers shall not be treated differently from other students, be identified to persons who do not need such information, or be denied access to any class or school-sponsored or supported activity.
Elementary and middle schools are prohibited from any type of overnight travel for school-related activities. Overnight travel must be district approved 45 days prior to discussion with students. A parent meeting must be held discussing costs and the itinerary with 85% of parents supporting the travel plan. No student grades may be impacted by participation or non-participation in a student tour. All student travel must adhere to purchasing guidelines, and school dress code standards should also be enforced.
Parents and guardians have the primary responsibility for regular student attendance at school. School staff and students also share in that responsibility. Parents are expected to ensure that their children attend school regularly and arrive on time, and must notify school officials of legitimate absences. The parent must telephone the office to confirm a checkout prior to the students leaving during the school day. Classroom teachers are required to record and verify daily student attendance. Each school should create a school-wide attendance plan. Secondary school teachers shall develop disclosure statements for each course in compliance with district and school guidelines.
The Board of Education authorizes a student conduct policy and discipline regulations to outline general conduct and positive behavioral expectations and interventions. The board is committed to academic achievement and preparing students for college, career, and citizenship readiness. In order for all students to benefit, enjoy, and learn from school experiences in a safe environment, the board encourages students, employees, and community patrons to engage in the highest standards of civil and ethical behavior on school grounds, during school-sponsored activities, and in school-related communications and interactions. School staff are responsible to interact positively with students and correct misbehavior calmly, consistently, and immediately where the infractions occur. Staff members are responsible for maintaining a positive learning environment in the classroom and at extracurricular assignments, and assist in maintaining positive behavior expectations in common areas of the building. Staff members shall also discipline students in a professional and objective manner without undue emotional display, and should engage disruptive students with the least restrictive interventions. Staff may not inflict or cause the infliction of corporal punishment upon a student or exercise other liberties prohibited by law. The primary responsibility for conduct of a student rests with the student, then parents, and then the school. Students are expected to follow accepted rules of conduct and respect school authority. Regulation 3 outlines behaviors which are prohibited on school property, at school-sponsored activities, or while traveling in school-funded or school-dispatched vehicles, such as, but not limited to, possession or threat to use weapons or explosives, real or look-alike, possession, sale, or distribution of alcohol, drugs, controlled substances, or paraphernalia, threats of harm, battery, or assault, willful destruction of district property, and possession or distribution of pornography. When disruptive and dangerous conduct occurs, due process procedures are followed to provide fair and thorough investigations into student conduct and to properly apply disciplinary actions. Safe school violations require consultation with the school administrative team and the school performance director to determine whether the student should be referred to a district-level hearing.
The district is a drug, alcohol, and tobacco-free zone. Employees must report to the school administration any suspected drug, alcohol, e-cigarette, and/or tobacco-related concerns for investigation.
Canyon School District strictly prohibits any student or school employee who initiates, promotes, or engages in hazing, bullying, cyberbullying, abusive conduct, or retaliation activity in conjunction with any school activity or involving any person associated with a school activity regardless of where it occurs. Hazing and bullying are defined as abusive and illegal behaviors that harm victims and negatively impact the school environment. Cyberbullying means using the internet, a cell phone, or another device to send or post text, video, or an image with the intent or knowledge, or with reckless disregard, that the text, video, or image will hurt, embarrass, or threaten an individual, regardless of whether the individual directed, consented to, or voluntarily accessed the electronic communication. District employees who initiate, promote, and/or engage in hazing, bullying, cyberbullying, abusive conduct, harassment, or retaliation activities shall be subject to adverse employment action, including either probation or termination of employment for cause under the district's orderly termination policy. District employees who become aware of a violation of this policy shall immediately, by the next working day, report the alleged incident either to the building principal or the designee. Failure to report will result in disciplinary actions and referral to UPAC.
Stop the presentation and discuss the duty to report any suspicion of bullying or hazing to the school's administration, such as threats on social media, kidnapping students for initiation, duct taping students, or any act of humiliation. Also, discuss the consequences for not intervening and reporting.
By board policy, students shall dress in a manner suitable to the day's activities, consistent with the standards of health, safety, and acceptable behavior. Students who violate dress code provisions may be subject to student discipline and due process.
The Board of Education is committed to providing a working and educational environment free from unlawful discrimination, harassment, and/or retaliation. Accordingly, no otherwise qualified person shall be excluded from participation in, be denied benefits of, or otherwise be subjected to unlawful discrimination in any district program or activity on the basis of age, color, disability, gender, gender identity, national origin, pregnancy, race, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status. Let's take a moment to discuss what discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment are. Discrimination is conduct including words or gestures and other actions which adversely affects an employee's or student's environment or results in disparate treatment or impact based upon age, color, disability, gender, gender identity, national origin, pregnancy, race, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status. Harassment is conduct, including words or gestures and other actions, repeatedly communicated to another individual in an objectively demeaning or disparaging manner that contribute to a hostile, demeaning, or offensive work or school environment for the individual based upon age, color, disability, gender, gender identity, national origin, pregnancy, race, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature affecting an individual's employment, education, or participation in a school activity, and has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's employment or educational performance, or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Harassment may include gender role stereotyping, which involves unequal treatment on the basis of gender, visual or verbal gestures expressed through posters, cartoons, emails, texts, or jokes, criminal touching or actions that are visually shocking, quid pro quo, a favor for a favor, as well as any unwelcome sexual behavior initiated by an employee, student, volunteer, or non-employee. Students who feel they have been harassed should report the issue to their principal, and if the complaint involves the principal, the complainant should contact the Office of School Performance or the Department of Human Resources. Employees who feel they have been harassed should report the issue to their principal or immediate supervisor. If the complaint involves a principal or immediate supervisor, the complainant should contact the Department of Human Resources. If the complaint involves human resources, the complainant should contact Canyon School District's Legal Services Department. An employee who knows of a violation of this policy has a duty to report such conduct to their principal, immediate supervisor, human resources, or the district's compliance officer. An employee may be held liable in a harassment case if he or she knew or should have known that harassment behaviors were taking place and did not take appropriate action. The person receiving the complaint must forward a copy of the written complaint to the district's compliance officer.
Every year, more than 3.6 million referrals of child abuse and neglect are made to state and local agencies in the United States. In Utah, 5,359 abuse cases were opened in 2014, according to the Utah Children's Justice Center. 78% of those were for sexual abuse. In the United States, it is estimated that more than 300,000 children are sexually abused each year. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to control victims for the purpose of engaging in commercial sex acts or labor service against his or her will. These crimes include digital trafficking and the distribution of photographs, videos, and other media of underage victims through online social networks. According to the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention study, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will experience some form of sexual abuse before the age of 18. Sexual abuse or sexual misconduct is any act or acts by any person involving sexual molestation or exploitation of a youth, including, but not limited to, incest, prostitution, rape, sodomy, or any lewd or lascivious conduct involving a youth, as well as any sexual act by an adult that makes the youth feel uncomfortable. This can include physical or non-physical contact, pictures, inappropriate jokes, or communication, and any other grooming behaviors. Sexual abuse can occur anywhere, including, but not limited to, homes, churches, hotels, locker rooms, restrooms, bedrooms, parks, automobiles, schools, or through social media. Prevention efforts do matter, and by learning the facts, adults can make a difference. Adults miss opportunities to prevent child sexual abuse because of misinformation and confusing stereotypes. An abuser takes on all shapes and sizes, regardless of social status, ethnicity, race, or creed. An abuser is generally someone the family knows and trusts, someone who has easy and consistent access to the youth. The idea that the perpetrator is a stranger lurking in a dark alley is most often not the case. Sexual abuse doesn't only happen to girls. Boys and girls alike can be victims. Men and women can be perpetrators of sexual abuse. Most victims do not become abusers. Perpetrators can look and act like everyday people and often try to blend into society. They can be charming, charismatic, and pillars in the community. Perpetrators will attempt to earn trust, thus challenging youth's instincts and causing them to let down their guard. They're methodical in their efforts to keep up the image they have worked to create. Those in society who are respected and admired can also be perpetrators. Adults who have access to youth before or after school, or in private situations, are more likely to sexually abuse youth. Sexual abuse is prevalent and can cause many different physical and mental health problems. Survivors of sexual abuse report an increased likelihood of substance abuse and mental health issues, such as anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and a heightened risk of suicide. Survivors are also more likely to engage in prostitution than if they had not been abused, placing them at a higher risk for sexually transmitted diseases and AIDS. The safety of children is the responsibility of every adult, but especially youth-serving adults, educators, and school personnel. Youth shouldn't have the burden of preventing sexual abuse by themselves. Adults must act on their commitment to keep youth safe by learning to recognize and respond to inappropriate behaviors before a youth is harmed and reporting it if something has occurred. To recognize possible concerns, it is important to understand the differences between a safe and an unsafe touch. Safe touch is anything that leaves the youth feeling happy and comfortable, such as the youth holding hands with friends, warm hugs from loving parents, or a high five from an adult. Unsafe touch is anything that leaves the youth feeling unsafe, confused, uneasy, anxious, or uncomfortable, such as back rubs, touching private parts, or touches that are told to be kept secret. Sexual abuse is a crime that feeds off of secrecy and trust. Adult behavior must always be appropriate and above reproach. Youth have the right to ask an adult to stop a behavior that makes them feel uncomfortable and to report any concerning behavior to a trusted adult. All interactions with youth must be appropriate, such as giving high fives, knuckle bumps, thumbs up, verbal praise such as "great job," telling tasteful jokes, respecting the youth's personal space, and keeping windows free of coverings. Examples of behavior to avoid would be one-on-one interactions, touching private areas, forcing a hug or other physical contact, engaging in social media interactions with a youth, sharing personal or intimate details of one's home life with a youth, and paying more attention to one youth than to others. Abuse of a youth usually occurs as part of the grooming cycle, where extensive personal actions and behaviors build trust with youth that leads to abuse. The grooming cycle typically takes place over an extended period of time, is subtle, but escalates as trust is built with a youth and often the youth's parents or other caregivers. This is accomplished typically through grooming tricks, such as fake trustworthiness, pretending to be the youth's friend in order to gain trust, testing boundaries, jokes, roughhousing, back rubs, tickling, or sexualized games, such as pantsing, truth or dare, or strip games. Touch, from appropriate, comfortable, non-sexual touch to accidental touch of private parts, often over time. Intimidation, using fear, embarrassment, or guilt to keep a youth from telling anyone. Sharing sexual material, capitalizing on a youth's natural curiosity to normalize sexual behavior by showing pictures, videos, text messages, photos, websites, notes, etc. of a sexual nature. Breaking rules, encouraging a youth to break rules, establishing secret keeping as part of the relationship that can be used as blackmail in the future. Drugs and alcohol, breaking the rules and or making the youth less able to stop the abuse because they're under the influence of the substance. Communicating secretly, phone apps, texting, emailing, or contacting the youth privately where parents don't know about it and the youth is told to keep it a secret. Blaming and confusing, making the youth feel responsible for the abuse or what could happen to the youth, his or her family, or the abuser if the youth tells. It is imperative to recognize grooming behaviors so that sexual abuse can be stopped before it happens. Some possible signs that a youth may be a victim of sexual abuse may include sleeping disturbances, sudden personality changes, reverting back to younger behaviors, unexplained fear or refusal to be around a certain individual, refusing to go to typical activities, sexual activity that is inappropriate for the youth stage of development, self-harming behaviors such as cutting, as well as participating in self-defeating behaviors or high risk such as substance abuse. Some physical signs from a victim may include difficulty walking or sitting, torn clothing, stained or bloody underwear, pain or itching in the genital area, and sudden weight gain or loss. Certain traits or behaviors can put a youth at higher risk of sexual abuse. Those who are insecure, have low self-esteem, feel lonely, or are disconnected are particularly vulnerable. Other factors include lacking knowledge about sex and sexuality, and being exposed to videos, music, video games, or other media that are violent, sexually explicit, or degrading to women. If a youth has cognitive, physical, emotional, and/or a learning disability, he or she may also be more susceptible to abuse. When youth disclose sexual abuse, adults' reactions play an important part in whether the youth will continue to confide or will shut down. Adults should actively listen as the youth share experiences and should ask themselves, am I showing care and love, or am I quick to cast aside their experiences in response to my own uncomfortable feelings? As you speak with the youth, help them feel comfortable. Don't interview the youth. Allow law enforcement and professionals to do that. Reassure the youth that abuse is not his or her fault. Don't react with shock, anger, or disgust. Don't force a youth to talk. Don't force a youth to show injuries. Use terms and language that the youth can understand. Don't teach the youth new terms or words. Speak clearly and simply. Find out what the youth wants from you. Be honest with the youth. Confirm the validity of the youth's feelings. Be supportive and help the youth understand that he or she does not have to carry the burden alone. When reflecting on someone's behavior which may be questionable, consider the following. Does it seem odd? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Does your gut feeling tell you something is not right? Does it seem to happen all the time or too often? Has anyone else commented or noticed? If the answer is yes, then trust your instincts and act. By reporting what you suspect, you may just save the life of a child. In Utah, all adults are legally obligated to report suspected abuse. A licensed educator who does not report suspected abuse could be at risk of losing his or her license. When employees suspect abuse or neglect, they must make an oral report to their principal, supervisor, or the principal's designee. They should also immediately call Utah's 24-hour child protection line, 855-323-3237, or the local city police department, or the Division of Child and Family Services. The responsibility of contacting parents or guardians lies with the Division of Child and Family Services, or the police. When preparing to call, try to have as much information on hand as possible, including the name of the youth and his or her parents or caregiver, the youth's date of birth and address, the name of the school or child care provider, as well as the nature of your concerns. You will also need to submit a completed copy of the district's Report of Child Abuse Neglect form to the agency receiving the oral report, to the principal or designee, and to the Canyon School District's Legal Services Department within 24 hours. By following the appropriate steps for reporting, chances are the youth will not be traumatized further by multiple interviews, and the case will remain untainted by outside forces. After reporting potential abuse, you are turning over the information to authorities and have no legal right to further details. It is not the employee's role to prove neglect or abuse, or to determine if the child needs protection. State law protects employees from criminal or civil liability for reporting abuse or neglect. The safety of children is the responsibility of every adult. Stop the presentation and discuss what to look for to help prevent abuse, as well as your duty to report any suspicion of abuse. Also, discuss where to access the Report of Child Abuse and Neglect form and who must be contacted.
An individual who presents with any level of suicidal ideation requires urgent attention. Employees should immediately refer the individual to the school's administration or the school's mental health professional, such as the school counselor, social worker, or psychologist. Do not leave the individual alone if actively suicidal. It is important to be able to recognize the signs of suicidal ideation, which may include talking about wanting to die or to kill themselves, looking for a way to kill themselves like searching online or buying a gun, creating a plan on how to die by suicide, talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live, talking about feeling trapped or in unbearable pain, talking about being a burden to others, giving away possessions and saying goodbye, acting anxious or agitated, sleeping too little or too much, withdrawing or isolating themselves, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, excessive risk-taking, extreme mood swings, and a sudden increase in mood after a period of depression. A new resource available to the public is the Safe UT app, where you can start a chat with a crisis counselor, submit a tip to your school administrator, or start a call with a crisis counselor. You can also contact the Responsive Services Department for additional information and support. We can all help prevent suicide.
Employee and student use of electronic information resources must be in support of education and be consistent with the objectives of the district. While access to all materials on a worldwide network cannot be controlled, Internet access in the district is filtered and monitored on an ongoing basis. Individuals must use the Internet and other electronic information resources in an appropriate manner, using generally accepted rules of network etiquette. Those who formally publish school or district-related information on the Internet must have proper approval and abide by district publishing guidelines and procedures. Employees and students may not intentionally transmit or receive material using district property in violation of law or district policy, which includes, but is not limited to, pornographic, indecent, or sexually suggestive materials, weapons, controlled substances, alcohol, or incendiary devices, posting or sending content that contains threats or is hatefully, racially, ethically, or otherwise objectionable, participate in or promote illegal or inappropriate activities, advertise products or lobby politically, reveal personal information such as names, addresses, etc., as well as intentionally harm or destroy district data, the network, or network performance. An employee or student may not access or be in possession of pornographic material on district property. District property is defined as physical locations throughout the district, as well as computers, cell phones, or other media devices owned by the district. Any inappropriate material accessed on district equipment is not permitted regardless of the time or location when it was accessed. Employees who access or who are in possession of pornographic material on district property will be subject to employment termination and UPAC notification if applicable. Employee or student files, flash drives, cell phones capable of storing data, disks, documents, etc., which have been used or created with district electronic information resources are not considered private. Email transmissions are not private. Annually, employees must acknowledge that they have read district policy, technology resources, network acceptable use, and agree to abide by its terms and conditions. Employees must report to the school administration any suspected misuse of district technology for investigation. Employees and students who violate the terms and conditions of this policy may have their access to electronic information limited, suspended, or revoked, and will be subject to disciplinary action. Employees may be subject to termination of employment and appropriate legal action.
Canyon School District is a drug, alcohol, and tobacco-free zone. Employees are expected to report to work physically and mentally capable of performing their job-related tasks. Employees are prohibited from manufacturing, possessing, using, dispensing, or distributing any illicit drug or alcohol on school district property or as part of any school district activity. They are also prohibited from misusing prescribed medication and from using all tobacco products and electronic cigarettes on school district property or as part of any school district activity. An employee found in violation of this policy may be subject to disciplinary actions including, but not limited to, probation, suspension, and/or termination of employment. Out of concern for the public's safety, the district will randomly administer drug and alcohol testing to regular drivers of district-owned vehicles, such as driver's education and white fleet vehicles. The district will also administer drug and alcohol testing to employees where reasonable suspicion exists and to employees who are involved in work-related accidents. If an employee refuses to be drug tested under the regulations of this policy, the district will deem the refusal as a positive result and the employee will be subject to employment termination. For your information, the use, sale, and possession of all forms of cannabis, marijuana, in the United States is illegal under federal law. Employees who test positive for illegal drug substances, regardless of where the substance was consumed, will be subject to employment termination and UPAC notification, if applicable.
District policy states that there shall be no display of manner or speech that would be or tend to be lewd, vulgar, wanton, lascivious, defamatory, or otherwise disruptive to the wholesome educational environment.
Any employee who is arrested, cited, or charged for any of the following alleged offenses shall report the arrest within 48 hours, or as soon as possible to the Director of Human Resources. They include any matters involving an alleged sex, drug, or alcohol offense, or an offense against a person, such as assault or domestic violence, or a felony offense against property. Employees who drive motor vehicles as part of their employment responsibility must also report arrests, citations, or tickets for violations of the vehicle code. Employees must also report any convictions, including plea in abeyance and diversion agreements for the aforementioned offenses. Educators must also report to Human Resources and to the Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, UPAC, any conviction, regardless of severity. This also includes pleas in abeyance and diversion agreements.
Salt Lake County Health Department's Health Regulation Number 38, Certificate of School Employee Immunization Requirements mandate that school employees are required to maintain a personal record of immunization, exemption, or proof of immunity, and, upon request of the Health Department, provide proof of immunization, exemption, or proof of immunity in the event of an outbreak of a vaccine-preventable disease. All school-based personnel are required to have immunity or documentation of the following vaccinations: 2 doses of the MMR administered at least 1 month apart, or proof of immunity for all school-based personnel born in or after 1957. The employee must also provide documentation of 1 dose of the Tdap, as well as 2 doses of varicella vaccine at least 4 weeks apart, or physician diagnosis or personal recall of varicella disease or proof of immunity. Except as otherwise provided, school-based personnel may claim an exemption to an immunization for medical, religious, or personal reasons as allowed by Utah Code. Each exemption claimed must be accompanied by the appropriate Salt Lake County Health Department exemption form, which are available through the Department of Human Resources.
Canyon School District serves over 2,000 students who are homeless and who qualify for McKinney-Vento rights protection. These students should be referred to as students in transition and not homeless. These students attend every one of our schools. Students in transition can be of any age. They are students who lack a fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence or share the housing of others due to loss of housing for economic hardship. They may also live in motels, hotels, trailer parks, and camping grounds. They may also live in emergency or transitional shelters, or in cars, parks, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train stations. They can also be a youth who is not in the physical custody of a parent or guardian. For students in transition, schools can often be a place of refuge. As a school community, it is our responsibility to build a safe and supportive environment for all students, but especially for students in transition. These students must be enrolled immediately in school, even without required documentation, such as school records, immunization, birth certificates, proof of residency, or guardianship. Being enrolled denotes that the student in transition may attend classes and participate fully in school activities. Schools must ensure these students have access to all programs and services for which they are eligible, including special education services, preschool, school nutrition programs, language assistance for English learners, career and technical education, gifted and talented programs, summer learning, online learning, and before and after school care. Students in transition are traditionally identified as part of the registration process. However, as events occur during the school year, Employees should watch for warning signs of students who might be living in transition. If you notice these warning signs, notify your school administrator to see if additional supports are needed. Early arrival or departure from school, lunch charges, lack of funds to eat breakfast or lunch, tardies, absences or changes in routine, lack of appropriate clothing for the season, use of school facilities for personal needs, storing clothes or personal items at school. Stressed, sleepy, change in behavior, hygiene issues, change of affect and/or of behavior, loss of access to a computer, guarded conversation about home and family, change in grades or school performance, and lack of school supplies, lost books, or other supplies. Though students in transition may face great challenges, a caring adult who can ensure that a student's rights are upheld and can connect him or her to other supports can make a world of difference. For questions regarding McKinney-Vento or supports for students in transition, please contact the Canyons District Homeless Liaison or the Director of Student Advocacy and Access.
The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, is a federal law that protects the privacy of students' records of any educational institution that receives Federal Department of Education funds. FERPA has two main functions: to grant parents and eligible students rights regarding information that educational institutions maintain, and to preserve the privacy of that information. FERPA grants parents and eligible students the right to inspect and review education records, the right to request an amendment or challenge the accuracy of their education records, the right to prevent unauthorized disclosure of education records, and the right to file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education about a violation of FERPA. Parents and eligible students may waive the above rights. However, schools must have written permission in order to release any information from a student's education record. Please note, FERPA allows schools to disclose those records without consent to the following parties or under the following conditions: school officials with legitimate educational interest, other schools to which a student is transferring, specified officials for audit or evaluation purposes, appropriate parties in connection with financial aid to a student. Organizations conducting certain studies for or on behalf of the school, accrediting organizations, compliance with a judicial order or lawfully issued subpoena, appropriate officials in cases of health and safety emergencies, and to state and local authorities within a juvenile justice system pursuant to specific state law. Schools may disclose, without consent, directory information, such as a student's name, address, telephone number, date and place of birth, honors and awards, and dates of attendance. Directory information does not include Social Security or student identification numbers. Schools must tell parents and eligible students about directory information and allow parents and eligible students a reasonable amount of time to request that the school not disclose directory information about them. Schools must notify parents and eligible students annually of their rights under FERPA. School officials, administrators, licensed employees, and education support professionals who have access to student information must understand their roles and responsibilities under FERPA to protect that information and uphold the parent and eligible student's right to privacy under FERPA. If you have a FERPA question regarding the release of student information, please contact Canyon School District's Legal Services Department.
The Utah Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act regulates the disclosure of protected or private district information, the use of position for personal gain, outside employment conflicts, and acceptance of gifts and the participation in business transactions to which the employee has interest. Employees of the district may not disclose controlled, protected, or private information gained by reason of their employment to secure personal privileges or exemptions for self or others. Employees of the district may not use their position to further their own personal economic interest or secure special privileges or exemptions for self or others. Employees of the district may not accept employment or engage in any business or professional activity that would require disclosure of controlled information gained by reason of their employment. District employees may not accept or seek directly or indirectly for themselves or another any gift or benefit where it would improperly influence the performance of job responsibilities, or it is intended as a reward for official action taken, or the employee is currently or in the near future will be involved in action directly affecting the donor. For your information, the giving of a gift to any employee who participates in any procurement is a felony. District employees may not participate in their official capacity on any transaction between the district and any business in which they own a substantial interest unless the employee has submitted a disclosure to their direct supervisor.
The Jordan Classified Evaluation System, JASIS, is the evaluation tool used for contract ESP employees and non-licensed administrators. All employees evaluated with JASIS must attend an orientation every year. This orientation will be conducted at least 15 working days before the employee is evaluated. All employees will be evaluated annually. Canyon's Teacher Effectiveness Support System, or CTES, is the evaluation instrument used for educators. All educators evaluated with CTES must attend an orientation every year. This orientation will be conducted by an educator's supervisor at least 15 working days before the educator is evaluated. Provisional educators will be evaluated annually, and career educators will be summatively evaluated once every 3 years, and the rating will be reported annually to the USBE. The Canyon's Leadership and Administrator Support System, or CLAS, is the evaluation instrument used for licensed administrators. All administrators evaluated with CLAS must attend an orientation every year. This orientation will be conducted at least 15 working days before the administrator is evaluated. Provisional administrators will be evaluated annually, and career administrators will be summatively evaluated once every 3 years, and their rating will be reported annually to the USBE.
Let's do a quick review. Is it against district policy to access inappropriate materials on a district-owned computer after hours? Yes, an employee or student may not access or be in possession of pornographic material on district property regardless of the time or location when it was accessed. Employees who access pornographic material on district property will be subject to employment termination and UPAC notification, if applicable.
Should an employee be contacting or texting individual students after school hours? No. Personal communication with the student for reasons unrelated to instruction or official school business may be considered unprofessional conduct, a boundary invasion, and grooming.
If you suspect child abuse, you must notify your supervisor and appropriate agency within what time frame? Immediately. It is not the employee's role to prove neglect or abuse or to determine if the child needs protection. It is our duty to report.
Could comments, jokes, gestures, or posters be considered harassment? Yes, the Board of Education is committed to providing a working and educational environment free from unlawful discrimination, harassment, and/or retaliation.
If you are aware or suspect that an incident of hazing or bullying has occurred but fail to report it, would your job be in jeopardy? Yes. District employees who become aware of hazing or bullying shall immediately, by the next working day, report the alleged incident either to the building principal or designee. District employees who fail to give the notice to their immediate supervisors have committed unprofessional practice and shall be subject to adverse employment action, including probation or termination of employment.
If you are arrested, cited, charged, ticketed, or convicted of a DUI, when must you report the incident to the Director of Human Resources? you must report within 48 hours.
For a complete copy of a particular policy, please visit policy.canyonsdistrict.org. If you have any questions regarding this presentation, please feel free to contact the Department of Human Resources or your supervisor.